The storm was coming. Dark clouds churned over the sleepy town of Willow Creek, and the air crackled with the promise of chaos. In the distance, a single bolt of lightning split the sky, illuminating the weathered sign of the annual livestock auction. The crowd buzzed with laughter, their voices sharp as they mocked the lanky, sunburned farmer standing alone by the pen. His name was Eli Tanner, and he'd just done the unthinkable. He'd bought a scrawny, one-eyed bull for $1. Fools gamble, they jeered, pointing at the beast that looked more like a skeleton than a legend. But Eli stood firm, his calloused hands steady, his eyes fixed on the horizon. He knew something they didn't. And when the first lightning bolt struck, the world would know it too. Eli was no stranger to ridicule. At 32, he'd spent his life on the fringes of Willow Creek, a town that thrived on tradition and scoffed at dreamers. His family's farm had been failing for years, droughts, debts, and bad luck had whittled it down to a few acres of dust and hope. His father, Old Man Tanner, had been a respected rancher once, but after his death, the townsfolk turned on Eli, calling him soft, a boy pretending to be a man. He'll lose the farm by winter, they'd whisper at the diner, shaking their heads. Eli heard every word, but he kept his head down, working the fields alone, his only company the memory of his father's voice, "Trust your gut, son. The world don't know what it don't see." The bull, named Cinder by the auctioneer as a cruel joke, was the talk of the town for all the wrong reasons. It was the last lot of the day, a creature so frail it could barely stand, its patchy hide stretched over ribs, one eye clouded and useless. The auctioneer had practically begged someone to take it off his hands, starting the bid at $10, then $5, then $1. The crowd roared with laughter as Eli raised his hand, his dollar bill crumpled from days in his pocket. $1 for that bag of bones, shouted Amos Reed, the town's wealthiest rancher, his voice dripping with disdain. You Tanners always were fools. The crowd howled, but Eli didn't flinch. He led Cinder away, the bull's uneven steps echoing in the dirt, while whispers of his madness followed him home. Back at the farm, Eli's sister, Clara, was waiting. At 25, she was the only one who hadn't given up on him. She'd stayed after their father's death, managing the books while Eli worked the land. "Eli, what were you thinking?" she asked, her voice soft but urgent as she watched him guide Cinder into the barn. The bull's head hung low, its breath labored. "They're saying you threw away our last dollar on a dying animal." Eli wiped sweat from his brow and met her gaze. "He ain't dying, Clara. He's waiting." She frowned, her brown eyes searching his face for the brother she sometimes didn't understand. "Waiting for what?" she asked. Eli didn't answer, but his lips twitched into a faint smile as he glanced at the darkening sky. The first challenge came swiftly. The farm's debts were mounting, and the bank was circling. Mr. Harrow, the loan officer, arrived the next morning, his polished shoes absurd against the cracked earth. "Eli, you've got 2 months to pay up, or this land's ours," he said, eyeing Cinder with a sneer. "And that bull won't help you. Everyone's talking about how you've lost your mind." Eli nodded, his jaw tight. "I'll pay," he said simply. Harrow laughed, a cold, pitying sound. "You're dreaming, boy." As Harrow drove off, Clara clutched Eli's arm. "We can't lose this place, Eli. It's all we have left of Dad." Eli squeezed her hand. "We won't lose it. Trust me." Days turned into weeks, and Eli poured himself into Cinder. He fed the bull what little grain they could spare, mixed with wild herbs he gathered from the hills. He spent hours brushing its coat, talking softly as if the animal could understand. The townsfolk kept laughing, calling Cinder Eli's folly. Amos Reed even offered to buy the farm for half its worth, smirking as he said, "You can keep that bull as a pet, Tanner." Eli refused, his voice steady but his heart heavy. Clara watched him work, torn between faith in her brother and fear that he was chasing a ghost. But something in Cinder's good eye, a glint of defiance, kept her from giving up entirely. The second challenge was the weather. Willow Creek was no stranger to storms, but this one was different. The forecast warned of a tempest, the kind that could flood fields and ruin crops. The townsfolk boarded up their homes, their laughter replaced by worry. Eli, though, seemed almost eager. He reinforced Cinder's pen, his hands moving with purpose. Clara caught him staring at the sky one evening, muttering to himself. "What are you waiting for, Eli?" she asked, her voice trembling. He turned to her, his eyes bright. "Lightning," he said. "Dad told me once about a bull that changed everything. Said it was born in a storm, marked by it. I saw it in Cinder's eye at the auction. He's the one." The night of the storm arrived like a reckoning. Thunder rolled, and rain lashed the earth. The townsfolk huddled in their homes, but Eli stood in the field, Cinder at his side. Clara begged him to come inside, but he wouldn't budge. "This is it," he said, his voice barely audible over the wind. Then it happened. A bolt of lightning tore through the sky, striking the ground just feet from Cinder. The bull didn't flinch. Instead, it reared up, its frail body suddenly alive, its single eye blazing with a fire that seemed to defy the storm itself. The air hummed with energy, and Eli laughed, a wild, triumphant sound. Clara stared, her fear giving way to awe. Word spread like wildfire. By morning, the townsfolk gathered at the edge of Eli's field, their jeers replaced by whispers of wonder. Cinder stood tall, his coat gleaming, his body filled out as if the lightning had poured life into him. Farmers who'd mocked Eli now asked to see the bull, their eyes wide. Amos Reed arrived, his face pale. "How'd you do it, Tanner?" he demanded. Eli shrugged. "I believed in him." Tests later showed Cinder's bloodline carried rare genetics, a lineage tied to a legendary stormborn bull Old Man Tanner had once owned. The bull's strength and resilience made it a prize, and offers poured in thousands, then tens of thousands. Eli sold Cinder to a breeder for enough to save the farm and more, but he kept his share of the bloodline, ensuring his family's future. The resolution wasn't just financial. Eli's faith had changed Willow Creek. The townsfolk, once cruel, now spoke of him with respect. Clara, who doubted but never left, stood prouder, her bond with Eli stronger than ever. At the next auction, Eli walked through the crowd, no longer the fool but the man who'd seen what others couldn't. He didn't gloat, he didn't need to. The farm thrived, and Cinder's legend grew, his offspring fetching fortunes across the state. As the sun set over Willow Creek, Eli stood by the old barn, watching another storm brew in the distance. Clara joined him, her smile soft. "You were right," she said. "About everything." Eli nodded, his eyes on the horizon. "Dad always said trust your gut. I just listened." The camera pans out, the sky alive with the promise of lightning, and Eli's voice carries over the wind. Sometimes, all it takes is one spark to change everything. The screen fades to black, leaving viewers with a message: believe in the impossible, even when the world laughs. Trust your heart, and legends will follow.